Who were the Sith Masters that all other Sith feared? Greetings again, Acolytes, and welcome back to the Archives. The Great Galactic War was a terrifying time for the galaxy after the ending of the Cold War, where there had been a stalemate between the Republic and the Sith Empire. Both sides came out swinging with everything that they had. When it came to the Sith, they were always trying out new types of super weapons, training methods, artifacts, and any other terrible weapon of war that you can think of. But perhaps one of the most terrifying attempts of them all was a collection of Sith Lords known as the Dreadmasters. At the height of their influence, the Dreadmasters were feared by both Jedi and Sith alike, but for entirely different reasons. The Republic was afraid of how the Dreadmasters were able to destroy entire fleets all by themselves, and the Sith were terrified of how they attained this power. So today, join us as we open up another holocron and dive into the secrets of the Dreadmasters. But before we hop into this one, we must inform you of something dreadful happening within our own archives. Some of you who are watching have not yet subscribed, so if you enjoy these daily deep dives into Star Wars lore and want more of it, be sure to force crush that subscribe button and drop a comment below about what topics you would like to see explored later. Now, onto the holocron. The Dreadmasters owe their beginnings to 3 Sith artifacts known as the Phobos devices. These were mysterious artifacts that harnessed the power of fear with only mere exposure. They were filled with so much dark energy that they left all but the bravest of minds crippled with fear. Many Sith in history had tried to meditate on them in order to learn the secret of this ability, and that many Sith had been driven insane by the same artifact. The Sith Emperor Vitiate, though, was fascinated by these devices and wouldn't give up on research trying to harness the secret. He placed one in a Sith temple on Dromund Kaas, where it would continue to spread hysteria to keep all of the subjects of the world in line. But finally, he would find only 6 beings, those beings who had the capability to meditate on the Phobos devices and learn of their secrets successfully. They became known as the 6 Dreadmasters, and for countless years, the Dreadmasters would meditate in complete seclusion, only brought out of Vitiate's personal command when they were to serve as advisors, generals, and prophets of the dark side. The Sith Emperor greatly valued their insight because they had a very different understanding of how the dark side operated, the way of the dark side giving them more knowledge through fear than any other Sith before or after, and the Dreadmasters themselves were monsters of men. They each wore crimson and black robes with many gold accents, including the frightening gold masks which perpetually obscured their faces. There was once a young Sith in training by the name of Hargrev, and he was one of the most sadistic Sith to ever live. He enjoyed inflicting pain so much that he wasn't even taken seriously by the rest of the Sith. This caused him to struggle to attain the title of Darth. Nevertheless, he continued to fall deeper into sadism and sick pleasure in the suffering of others. But concerning the Dreadmaster, Hargrev had this to say about them. "Once I thought myself a monster. I played in rivers of blood and laughed as innocence quaked. Yet, when I touched the Dreadmasters, I saw that my darkness was but a shadow of true depravity." The 6 Dark Lords would be brought out of their containment when the Great Galactic War resumed in the year 3643 BBY, where they would travel around on an Imperial dreadnought and randomly would appear during space battles. Here, the Dreadmasters would unite their power in unison, falling into battle meditation. This was the true nature of their abilities, as they would inflict the horrors that they had learned from the Phobos device onto the minds of their enemies. With this power, they were able to demolish entire Republic fleets in a matter of minutes. Pilots mid-flight, and all the crews of the Republic ships suddenly were convulsing with terror as their eyes were accosted with horrific sights, and not even the Jedi were able to counteract this with their own meditation, all while the Dreadmasters were nigh impossible to catch, as the capital ship they resided on stayed in constant motion, hardly ever settling in one place long enough to interact with them or stage an attack. Eventually though, their dreadnought was discovered by the Jedi Knight Jarek Kaden despite the secrecy of their location. Here, Jarek was a watchman of the Jedi Order stationed mostly in the Outer Rim. This is why he knew this like the back of his hand, and had a great understanding of this territory. After a recent raid that the Dreadmasters had performed, Jarek would hunt them down before gathering together a strike team of Republic Special Forces in order to infiltrate the Dreadnought. The RSFD was made up of the very finest Republic troopers that the galaxy had to offer. Each of them was specially trained in a unique category of weaponry, and given special training for missions such as this one. Their training and Jarek's leadership would eventually pay off, as they were successful in their raid and would eventually capture all 6 of the Dread Masters. Once they had all 6 Sith Lords in custody, the Jedi and the Republic attempted to interrogate them, but the Dread Masters resisted all forms of questioning. Despite this, the Jedi were able to learn of a more terrifying truth. The Dread Masters were each several centuries old, having attained the same immortality that Vitiate had. Following the success of the mission, the Sith Dreadnought was destroyed, and the Republic leaked false information that the Dread Masters had been killed. The Jedi Council had hoped that such news would prevent the Sith Emperor from launching any plan to rescue them. However, another reason the Sith were kept alive was that it was believed that they were too valuable to eliminate, but this would prove to be a massive mistake. The Jedi had them all imprisoned on the planet of Belsavis, where there was housed an ancient prison thought to be the only place strong and secure enough to hold the 6 masters. But upon their arrival, even though the 6 were all placed in separate cells, each prisoner within a quarter mile of them would die, and so the Jedi had them all moved to the deepest part of the prison for extra security. The Dread Masters would remain in this prison until after the Battle of Dromund Kaas, where the Sith Emperor would be defeated for the first time. Later, the Empire would discover the location of the prison on the world and send in a team to have the Dread Masters liberated. Their operations were successful, and once the Masters had been let out of their cells, they united once more to dominate the mind of the Warden and wreak havoc on the prison before leaving with the Empire. However, once they learned Vitiate was no more, they decided to strike off on their own. Following in the ways of Malgus, they decided to establish their own Sith Empire and became another third-party threat in the war. Unfortunately for the Dread Masters though, it seemed that without the guidance of Vitiate, they weren't as successful when operating alone. 3 times they would send out Sith Lords working under them on missions which would be foiled by the combined efforts of the Jedi, as well as a Sith strike team looking to bring down the Dread Masters before they could inflict unrestricted terror on the galaxy, with the remnants of the Sith Empire deeming them extremely dangerous. On their first operation, the Dread Masters would send a Trandoshan warlord to find a hypergate, an elusive, faster-than-light warp gate built by the ancient Gree civilization. From here, they planned on unleashing a horrific being known as the Terror from Beyond, also known as Lot Kek. Very little is known about this entity other than it was a massive force-sensitive creature with multiple sharp tentacles and a face resembling that of a spider. This plan would be thwarted by the Jedi and Sith alike, as they stopped the Trandoshan warlord from completing the summoning process from the Terror of Beyond, and defeated the monster before it could fully materialize in the physical world. Their second attempt at a plan came with their servant, the Dreadguard, and when they sought out the weapon known as the Aurora Cannon, a piece of ancient Rakatan technology, which was believed to be their attempt at a ground-to-orbit cannon, and was said to be far more powerful than any cannons made in the modern day. This too would be foiled by a combined strike teams, and the cannon was eventually destroyed alongside all of the Dreadguard. The third desperate grab for power came when the Dreadmasters sent Darth Tagris to recover 2 Sith artifacts, the Seeds of Rage and the Dark Staff. The Seeds of Rage were large devices meant to be planted in the soil of a world. There, they would flood the surrounding area with dark side energy, causing fear, rage, and corruption to abound, warp all that was in the radius of the seed. And as far as the Dark Staff, well, this is one of the most terrifying darkside items in all of the lore. It was such a vile piece that even the darkside itself tried to destroy it. We did a whole video on this some time back, so if you're interested in learning more about the Dark Staff, be sure to check out our holocron all about it. But anyway, Darth Tagris would be hunted down and defeated at Ilum when the Republic and the Empire sent strike teams to recover the artifacts, doing everything they possibly could to keep the Dreadmasters from gaining the power. After 3 consecutive defeats, one of the Dreadmasters, by the name of Styrak, who was far more individualistic than the others, decided to secretly break off from the rest and conduct a plan that he thought would be more successful. Noticing that it was their lack of numbers that was allowing the Republic and the Empire to stop them, he would travel to the world of Darvanis. There, he gathered various mercenary and Hutt cartel groups to create a force strong enough to oppose the Empire and the Republic. Enacting his will on some of the mercenaries' mind, Styrak drove some of them insane. Unfortunately though, the Empire and the Republic noticed his actions and sent strike teams to stop him. After the mercenaries were wiped out, Styrak set his guards as well as a pet Kell dragon to fight the team. Being a master at Sith alchemy, he believed that this mutant pet would be able to destroy the strike team, but he was wrong. Finally, he entered combat himself and put on a powerful display of the dark side. There was a great struggle to overcome the Sith Lord, as he proved to be a formidable fighter. However, there were many powerful Jedi among this team, as these were the Jedi who had been trained by Satele Shan and her order of the strongest Jedi in history. Styrak would eventually fall in battle, and projections of other Dreadmasters would appear around his corpse and absorb his soul. After this, the Empire and the Republic decided that they were done fooling around with the Dreadmasters, and diverted their strike teams to locate and attack the Dread Palace. The team stormed the seat of power of the Dreadmasters, and brought down wave after wave of enemies that stood in their path. Each of the remaining masters individually attempted to rid themselves of the strike team, but would fail. The teams then reached the throne room, where they would face 4 Dreadmasters. During the fight, the masters were confounded by the strength of the strike team, and brought back the spirits of Styrak and other fallen brothers and sisters in an attempt to shift the fight. The battle was harsh, and the strike team nearly failed, but they still managed to separate each of the Dreadmasters and pick them off one by one. Still in disbelief that the strike teams were strong enough to take them down, the Dreadmasters brought their power together in one last-ditch effort to siphon the souls of all the Jedi and the Sith present. The strike team still managed to overcome them though, and killed almost all of the Dreadmasters before the team would succumb to death. Once it was all said and done, only one of the Dreadmasters was alive. This Dreadmaster, by the name of Calphasius, who after the rest of his brethren had been defeated and fell in battle, wandered around before coming to his senses. As if waking from a horrific dream, he realized that he had gone mad from the studies of the dark side and the study of the Phobos years ago. There was nothing left for him, as all of the Dreadmasters were gone, and so, in a shocking turn, he decided to reach out to the Republic's strike team, desiring to reason with them and the camp that they left behind. He told the team the story of his past and how he was once married and felt no fear or pain towards his wife or the life in general. However, once he and his friends, now the Dreadmasters, began studying the Phobos device, they became linked mentally and physically in a weave of terror and madness, distorting and changing him into a living entity of madness itself. The man was weak, scared, and alone, looking for any hope. The Jedi had all sensed that he was telling the truth and decided to show him mercy. Afterwards, they took him in the Jedi Temple to have him evaluated and cared for. And that, my friends, is the end of the story of the Dreadmasters, the lords that both the Jedi and Sith had to unite to destroy, and that they both feared greatly. In our opinion, the Dreadmasters are an awesome concept. Sith artifacts are amazing devices that are able to be used for all sorts of things in story, and it's almost more interesting to see the effects that they have on the people that decide to wield them. The idea that these 6 normal beings were able to gain such power and notoriety is definitely fascinating. My only complaint, I think, is that I wish once they had all been liberated from prison, they got to have some victories to live up to their reputations. Understandably, they were the antagonists of the story arc in the SWTOR game, with your player either being a part of the Jedi or Sith strike teams sent to stop their plans. But still, it seems rather odd that they're built up to be extremely powerful, wise, and terrifying, but they take L after L, unable to overcome some strike teams that keep stopping their plans. In the final fight, they all got cornered as animals. Still though, going out in a blaze of glory to be sure, but perhaps there could have been something more climactic. Still though, the ending was a nice one, with the last Dreadmaster becoming who he once was as a person, and seeking out hope. Many of the dark side wielders who come back from their life of depravity, as few and far between as they are so horrified by their actions that they just want to die, and they often do. So it's definitely a breath of fresh air when one of them hasn't given up all hope on themselves and wants to do good with what life they have left. And it's even better to seeing the Jedi live up to their ideals and granting them that mercy. But anyway, my friends, what do you think of this? Would you have wanted to see more bombastic plans in place of the Dreadmasters? And let us know in the comments down below what you think of the 6 horrific Sith Lords. As always, my friends, thank you so much for stopping by the channel today, and as always, may the Force be with you.